Welcome to another video about upcoming games in 2023 that we're excited to try on our Macs. Unlike the titles from our previous video, the games we'll be showing today don't have available demo, so the things we say next are speculations, based on the available trailers and some additional research that we've done. It wasn't easy to find specific information about some of these titles, but now we're pretty confident that we managed to give you a good idea about what to expect out of these games. Now, let's not waste any more time and jump right into the video. One of the more unusual entries here, Book of Hours, is an RPG game about working at a large mansion's library that's known for storing ancient tomes pertaining to the occult and otherworldly. Your job will be to organize the books, protect them, restore damaged tomes, and acquire new ones by purchasing them or by using more underhanded methods. Not much is known about the gameplay, but it seems like it'll be similar to the Cultist Simulator, the only other title made by the same developer. Cultist Simulator is an RPG card game where you live the life of an aspiring, you guessed it, cult leader, but all actions, events, and characters are represented by cards. It seems Book of Hours will have a similar card-based gameplay, but you'll also have the option to explore and refurbish the mansion, and visit a nearby village, where you can interact with different characters. Speaking of other characters, apparently a major gameplay element will be the player's interaction with the library's visitors, whom you can influence and thus have a long-reaching impact on the outside world. But despite those additional options, most of the game will still be about the cards, and to someone who's not used to such gameplay, Book of Hours may feel unintuitive and overwhelming. Like Cultist Simulator, it's probably going to be a type of game that requires patience, and that encourages the player to experiment and to learn things on their own. This isn't a bad thing, but it's also not everybody's cup of tea. According to its devs, the game should provide a laid-back experience where there's no need to rush anything in particular, and you're free to choose how to perform your duties as a librarian. However, this is where it gets interesting. There's also a part about handling and lending arcane tomes that contain forbidden knowledge, and that can grant one the power to take over the world or to summon unimaginable eldritch entities beyond human comprehension. Yes, if you're into cosmic horror, then this game will probably be something you want to check out. That's not to say that Book of Hours will be a horror title, but it will definitely have a Lovecraftian vibe, so it should be ideal for anyone who's into that type of fiction, provided that you don't mind the unconventional card-based gameplay. Hollow Knight Silksong is one of the most anticipated indie games set to be released in 2023, and according to its devs, it will have a Mac version. So naturally, we had to cover it. For the uninitiated, the original Hollow Knight was one of the most celebrated 2D Metroidvania games out there, due to its unique atmosphere, mysterious plot and setting, and fluid combat with great enemy variety. By the looks of it, Silksong won't be diverting from this formula, and its main changes will be in its setting and characters. The most obvious difference is the decision to replace the knight from the first game with Hornet, a major character from the original, whom the player fights on several occasions. Hornet moves faster and jumps higher than the knight, can grab onto ledges, and has a wider attack moveset. She fights using stabs, dash attacks, jump attacks, and other interesting moves instead of only simple slashes, which should be great to experience in a game known for its highly responsive and precise combat system. Also, unlike the knight, she won't be a silent protagonist. Being able to see what she says will make for a main character with more personality, but might take away some of the mystery that surrounded the knight from the first game. Regardless, I'm still optimistic that the game studio, known for taking great care in crafting the lore and world of its characters, will find a way to make Silksong's story just as intriguing as the original. Another major difference will be in the setting. It's been confirmed that Silksong will be set in an entirely different place, and the new environments can be seen in the trailers. As for the story, some have speculated that we're actually looking at a prequel to the original Hollow Knight, where we explore the backstory of Hornet, but there's no official information about this. Personally, I think that could be an interesting twist, and would also mean that new players won't need to have played the first game to understand the story that's being told in Silksong. Either way, I'm excited about this one, and being able to play it on a Mac is great news. Arctic Awakening is an exploration adventure game about a pilot whose plane has crashed somewhere in Alaska. This sounds like a total nightmare. I mean, this guy has to survive the elements, find his lost co-pilot.
Kai? You out there?
Oh, thank God.
I thought I'd lost you.
and make his way back to civilization while also unraveling the reason behind the plane crash and dealing with his own personal problems like anyone else. The moment I opened the game trailer, the first thing that popped into my head was Firewatch in Alaska. For all of you that are unfamiliar with Firewatch, it's an exploration game that puts heavy focus on story and characters, while its gameplay is mostly limited to hiking through a forest and choosing what line of dialogue to speak through a walkie-talkie. Just by looking at the two, side by side, you gotta admit they look very similar, and I'm not saying this in a bad way. Firewatch is great, but it's appealing only to a specific type of players who want to be immersed in the story without being distracted by combat, crafting, or survival mechanics. Going by the trailer or some demo gameplay footage, I assume the same will be true about Arctic Awakening. It looks like it'll have a very bare bones type of gameplay, consisting of walking around, exploring the wilderness, and occasionally finding objects that will primarily serve to further the story rather than enrich the gameplay. The only other noteworthy mechanic seems to be the dialogue options while talking to other characters or robots. Your choices here will affect both your relationships with those characters and possibly the overarching story. In other words, it seems like Arctic Awakening will be more like an interactive story shaped by the player's choices and less like a conventional game. All things considered, it's become clear that what makes or breaks Arctic Awakening will be its writing, and how good that will be remains to be seen. This should be noted because the studio that created this game has never done a story-based game before. What's already clear though is that the game looks beautiful, so as long as the writing of its story and characters meet that same quality, I can say that this will be a title worth exploring. Demon School is a turn-based RPG in which you control a group of 4 characters and engage in battles against demonic creatures that have come to conquer Earth. Sounds pretty vanilla to me, yet there's some aspects of this game that have grabbed my attention. The main thing that stuck with me is the unique art style of the game. It looks like a weird mashup between Japanese manga, 80s nostalgia, and old school horror. On top of that, the game combined 2D and 3D animations, and also features some hand-drawn assets. On paper, all this sounds like a bizarre mess, but I gotta admit, the game's trailer looks quite impressive. I mean, for most of the game, you're playing with these 2D characters, and then all of a sudden, a huge 3D monstrosity that takes over half the screen starts eating the other half. This part immediately reminded me of a very old movie called The Langoliers that scared the shit out of me when I was still young. That's some nightmare fuel right there. And it seems Demon School will lean heavily on this particular style, which in my opinion is all good, as it'll give this game a unique blend. That said, fancy cinematic set pieces are not everything. This is supposed to be a turn-based strategy, so in the end, the quality of its gameplay and combat will determine how good it truly is. It seems the game will have a very simplistic combat system that boils down to correctly positioning and moving your characters on a small grid-based battlefield. Sort of reminds me of an old school classic. I detect some Heroes 3 vibes coming from here. Each character will automatically perform their default ability based on what they encounter on their path once you tell them to move. Personally, I'm not a fan. It's just too simplistic for my taste, yet that's not to say that the gameplay won't be fun. Sometimes, simplicity is the correct approach, so there's definitely a chance that Demon School may surprise us with a well-executed and satisfying gameplay. And once you combine this with a cool art style, you might end up with an unexpected gem of a game. The little information we did find about Memories Reach tells us that this will be a sci-fi puzzle game in which you follow a cryptic signal to a distant planet, where you find the remnants of a once great civilization. You explore the monolithic structures left behind by the ancient civilization, interact with their tech, and slowly uncover the underlying mystery. If you're into puzzle games, you know that there's already well-received titles out there that do the same thing, placing the player in a cool-looking environment, giving them elaborate tasks to solve, and gradually feeding them bits of story and lore isn't anything new. The Witness, The Room, The Talos Principle, the Portal series, and Myst are some of the titles that come to mind. But even if the general concept isn't new, I can't say that this 1-minute trailer didn't make me curious. If the final product consistently looks and sounds like what's on display here, I think Memories Reach might have a foundation of a gaming gem. But of course, a puzzle game is only going to be as good as the puzzles themselves, and if those aren't on point, No amount of style can make up for them. The only other title created by the developers of Memories Reach is another puzzle game called The Eyes of Ara. This one has very positive reviews, which is a good sign. However, a notable criticism of The Eyes of Ara is that it often requires the player to search for obscured objects to solve the puzzles, which is neither fun nor stimulating, because it pretty much wastes your time or forces you to look up the answers online. This makes me wonder if the same issues will be present in Memories Reach. Looking at the trailer, it seems that the upcoming games will take a different approach with its puzzles and won't rely on searching for hidden objects, but we'll have to wait and see if this is true. My personal take, I think Memories Reach looks promising, and as a fan of puzzle games, I'll definitely have it on my radar for 2023. Dissident Frostland Escape is a top-down adventure survival game about a labor camp prisoner trying to claw his way back to freedom. The specific location in which the game will be taking place doesn't seem to be mentioned, but it's clear that it's supposed to represent a fictionalized version of Russia's Siberia during the 20th century. This type of setting might be sensitive and potentially controversial, but I think it provides an interesting premise for a survival game. The strict security of such labor camps, the harsh cold climate of the north, and the surrounding vast expanses of empty wilderness are all challenges that the escapee will have to overcome, which could lead to an immersive gameplay loop. I assume the first thing you need to do is plan your escape. Gather whatever tools, clothing, and supplies you can find, and evade the guards to get to the other side of the wall. Then you'll have to constantly battle the freezing temperatures, the carnivorous wildlife, and the depletion of your own sanity, all the while being hunted by armed and well-equipped prison guards. If well executed, the combination of all these elements should prove to be an engaging experience that constantly keeps you on your toes by throwing new challenges at you. Currently, we know very little about this game, and its developer doesn't seem to have any noteworthy previous projects, so it's difficult to say what to expect. The game looks visually appealing, with pretty looking environments, dynamic lighting, and weather effects, which I take is a good sign. Sure, the bright and vibrant colors and the clean art style may seem more fitting for an adventure game or a puzzle game, and not a grim and gloomy tale about the life and times of a gulag fugitive. But I'll take this over a game with ugly and unenjoyable graphics any day. So in conclusion, Dissident Frostland Escape has the potential to be, at the very least, a satisfying title. And if we're lucky, it may even turn out to be very good, provided that its devs manage to deliver its promising setting premise and visuals with a well-realized gameplay. And so we've reached the end of this video, and now we'll have to wait and see if our predictions about these games turn out to be correct. In the meanwhile, if you've enjoyed this video and want to see other similar ones where we cover more games you can play on a Mac, be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons so you don't miss out on anything.